What's up? We are back. It is we're going into game 2, week 5 of the MLC, and judging on the last game that we just watched, this one's going to be just as crazy. We've had wild games so far today with some big explosive wins. With me right now to go over a little bit of the last game, go over a little bit of what's coming up. We've got Fern and Caleb from the MLC, from the Monarch team. They're going to be doing a little bit of analytics work, and I'm going to be actually jumping in on the casting with Dylan and Cam from Play to Win. How's everybody doing? How are we feeling about that last game?
Doing swell. What a game. That was crazy. Watching Zur go off is one of my favorite things to happen because Zur winning. Zur is like one of the main reasons why I got into CEDH. It's such a cool deck to watch do its thing. The stars have to align, but when they do, it's really cool to watch. And we got to watch them align on turn 2.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen the game, definitely make sure that you go back, you check out the VODs later, because that's going to be quite the turn 2 Zur win for you to check out. Some players did not get a second turn, and that's how it goes sometimes. But this was an incredible win pulled out by Shawnee.
Yeah, they played it perfectly. I thought I didn't see any mistakes or any, everything was perfect and the luck was with them. And yeah, it was a very cool game to watch, to watch that deck go off.
Yeah, I kept my eye on it while y'all were casting, and it was a slow start and an explosive finish. But there wasn't, like, I say slow start, but it was like 2 turns. Like, yeah, exactly. One careful turn, and then just let's go. Now, as for the game that wasn't cast live, what was the recap on that? I know that had a really cool finish to watch. That something you don't like, the dream turn, right? Like something we really don't get to see too often. What happened there?
Yeah, so like you said, pretty parallel to the first game this Father's Day, Juneteenth weekend. Like, we have like magical Christmas land on pod 2. So like you see Kai go on the play, turn 2 ninjutsu in this Nashi and flip over some mana crypt, etc. Blah blah blah, and then next turn on turn 3 swinging with Nashi and flipping ad nauseum while they just naturally had Angel's Grace in hand. So yeah, my favorite quote is ad nauseum ?
Why not?
Yeah, all gas, no brakes. What else can you say?
Yep.
Let's go for it.
Best you can ask for. That's absolutely awesome to see, and especially with Nashi. I played a deck with Nashi at the helm for a little while and really got to see that it's just like that deck is when Nashi's on the field, it is really all gas, no brakes. Like you could flip over anything and just run with it.
Especially in a powerful format like CEDH, you're going to assume your opponents are going to play powerful spells, right? If you hit 3 of them, one of them is probably going to be good.
I remember in the Play to Win set review we did for Kamigawa, we were a little bit unsure like where Nashi was going to land. The ninjutsu cost is insane. You only get 1 of the 4 spells, but like being able to get that 1 spell that you get for free just your life, like that is a humongous upside right there. So really love seeing Nashi actually break out into this format in more ways than one.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see more of it. I would love to see Nashi in alongside Villas somehow.
Maybe one of these days.
That's Dreamland.
Yeah, right. Maybe one of these days it'll show up in this crick list or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
So speaking of this crick list, this is going to be one of the games this is one of the decks in the game coming up. We've got, it looks like, Higher on Mono Black Storm Keurig. We've got Ink Moth on Mono Green Storm Selvala, Squirrel Mob standing in for Pongo on Mardu Stacks, and Adam Sliverboy, who was partying at my house last night, running 4C Curious Control. So how are we feeling about this match coming up as far as like favorites? What do you see really coming out on top? I know we mentioned Higher is on the play with Keurig. I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, if I were to put Keurig's stats on the screen, and I have offensive stats and defensive stats, I would put the offensive meter to 100 and the defensive meter to 0. This deck is, I think we said earlier, it's all gas, no brakes. It's got 1,000 tutors. It can find a win, I assume, very quickly. But I don't know if it can really protect its win. If someone's got a counterspell, I think you just go, okay, never mind, sorry.
You know what? If Higher starts off the game with Jeweled Lotus, Land, and Dark Ritual, I don't know if there's any other protection he needs,
just
right?
Jeweled Lotus Land, you get Kirk out, pay 6 life. I would probably do that.
That's also true.
You do it every time. Kirk is a deck that will consistently go off turn 2, turn 3 if it's given any sort of a decent hand at all. So this
Yeah,
is something
absolutely.
that definitely needs to be put down immediately by the rest of the team.
Yeah, so
They're gonna have to
funny
work as
theme
a
of
team.
funny theme of today in the casted games is that one blue deck per pod. So we are gonna see, you know, a stack like Mardu coming back in here for Mardu stacks. But again, there's only one other blue deck that actually has counterspell potential here. So with Crick being first and then seeing some of the interactive decks come back later, you know, I think we might be looking to see higher looking for some very fast hands and everyone else looking for very reactive hands as this pod gets started here.
There's definitely a lot of pressure, I think. Not pressure might not be the word, but there's a lot of emphasis on Sliver Boy, on four-color Curious Control, being able to police the table, I think, because a lot of these decks, or at least mono black and mono green, can go off extremely quickly. Mardu Stacks has a lot of ways to interact, but they have to make sure they have those stacks pieces out on turn 1, or probably just turn 1. Turn 2 might be a little bit too.
Turn 2, I think, is definitely going to be too slow in a pod like this. I mean, you got Sylvala too. Sylvala's turn 1 isn't going to scare you a ton, but that turn 2 is going to make you feel blue.
Yeah, and then on top of
I
that,
just came up with that. So yeah.
So
So-
I play against Sylvala all the time. One of the main, our boy CJ Sleepy Thanos runs Sylvala, and it's gotten to be like Narset status, like a not even once. Like you don't let Sylvala stick around. Like you never ever want to see it get activated. And so it is like a turn behind because it comes out, you know, summoning sick and all that. But it really is like if you get to untap with Sylvala, like it's just like you get to do the whole thing. So it's going to be really interesting seeing who is mauling like super aggressively into that, like either turn 1 stacks piece or just mauling aggressively for removal. And it looks like in this case, it could very well be mauling to creature removal, which is really interesting.
I feel like every deck is going to have to mulligan aggressively in this pod.
I was thinking the
interestingly
same
enough.
thing, Fern. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, Drannith Magistrate is like a stacks piece that a Mardu stacks that I want to highlight because specifically Mono Black Storm and Mono Green Bro Storm can't really do anything that they want to do if there's a Drannith Magistrate in plate. Luckily, they can do their thing on like turn 1 or turn 2, so that Drannith really has to be in the opening hand. But if it is there, both those decks are going to have a hard time. Mono Black Storm having about 10,000 removal spells, so maybe not as big of a deal. But nonetheless, it's still going to put a wrench in the plan.
Now, another card that we pointed out in this mono black deck is the inclusion of high-costed sorcery speed tutors. We were really excited to see not just the Diabolic tutor, but the pairing of that and also a Masterminds acquisition. So I'm really excited always to see like tutors that are a little bit more kind of laid back. You don't see too much. And I was going over the list, and I don't know if it was chosen on purpose, but they do have the snake version of Diabolic Tutor, which you always love to see.
Yeah, with Kirk being able to help out with those black pips, those tutors are actually just 2 mana demonic tutors for 4 life, and that's pretty good rate for 2 generic mana 4 life for demonic tutor. I'd pay for that.
And what I really like too are the removal spell suite that you have too. You get a couple of double black spells in Grasp of Darkness and Victim of Night too, a card that you see play in drafts, and like that's about like where you see that, but like it works super well with Crick and is going to be able to stop. Are there any vampire werewolves or zombies that are relatively stacksy in this format? I can't tell you one.
Nope.
They all feel like
vampire.
no. They all feel like humans. Yeah.
There might be a zombie I'm not thinking of, but I don't think so. I think anything that you want to hit, any like stacks piece, is not going to be human. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited to see this. 4-color Curiosity Control is also one of my favorite decks. Is actually one of the decks that kind of got me into CEDH as a attrition-y Jund player from Modern, getting into this format. Something that could grind down and get you a lot of value was something that I really liked. And what I like about this list is how many different ways you have to actually capitalize on Curiosity and Keen Sense. Not just by putting it on Vial Smasher, but also by having Firebrand Archer, Kessick Flame Breather, and the
Cataract Parasite. That's a fun one.
A hilarious one that comes up, which is great.
Never heard of.
Yeah. So that one, that also really like that one, goes very well while you have like your Vial Smasher in play too. Sigil of Sleep is a great one to add to this deck too.
Yeah, I love Sigil of Sleep from my casual days. Seeing it see possible play here is really great. Great way to keep the board in check. It's a slow card. I mean, this whole deck is a little bit on the slow side, I would say. I don't think these engines normally get rolling until around turn 3, normally. But there's things in place. There's Grafdigger's Cage. There's counter spells to hold off until you can get to that late game. So if this game does go late, I definitely think 4-color Curious Control is going to be the stronger one, even more so than Mardu Stacks, probably just because everything in this deck draws a card or allows you to draw extra cards or something like that.
I think I'd
If the
agree
game
with you
goes
on
late,
that front.
I favor this, but
For
if
sure.
we see turn 1 Kuruk, I don't think we're getting to the late game.
Probably not. I do think for Mardu Stacks, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's more of a niche deck, but it does have a 1-card combo with the commander in Buried Alive. If you bin a Kiki Jiki with a Village Bell Ringer, you're able to reanimate pretty easily in order to, and I believe there's a take an extra turn or combat in here, you're pretty easily able to win the turn that you cast Buried Alive with Alesha as well.
As long as
Which gives it a little bit of a nice fast combo in regards to its stacks potential as well.
That was actually something I was going to ask about. Like, I see the Breach on this list, but I was wondering what else is in there. And then you look down and it's got Kiki Jiki. We've also got stuff like Karmic Guide in there. So I was assuming there's going to be some Karmic Guide loops as well. There's all sorts of stuff. We got the Village Bell.
Monster of Cruelties catches my eye as a stack deck that is looking to attack, right? If you can get that swinging at someone, it is very easy just to sacrifice one of your other creatures to Goblin Bombardment and finish someone off that way.
For sure.
When I play stacks, I often think that each one of my pieces should be doing a pretty good job of locking at least one player completely out of the game. And Master of Cruelties is going to do that. Like against the turbo deck, they can't do anything at 1 life. They're completely shut off, and it's pretty easy to kill them when you have cards like Goblin Bombardment and attacking creatures in your deck. So although the rate, like a 5-mana creature that has to attack, not great, if you combine it with Alesha, you can get it in there for cheap. And being able to like stacks one player out of the game, I'm doing finger quotes if you're not watching me, but if you can stacks one player out of the game by removing them from the game, that can work. That can be a plan.
The best stacks is player removal.
There you go.
Yeah, and God forbid you hit the Carrick player with the Master of Cruelties. That's
they can't
just
do anything.
They can't do anything.
Yeah,
They're just hoping to draw a couple life off of Crick and then block with it.
Yeah.
Put him to 1 and forget about him.
So something we also mentioned earlier was the player standings. Fern and Caleb, do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry for the abrupt
no, it's fine.
But yeah, it's definitely something that's got my interest because I know that it's a huge part of the MLC and how the entire format works, and it's honestly one of the draws of it.
So we currently have Hire in this pod, who we saw in the previous one lose, unfortunately never getting a second turn, getting to go first this time with the turbo deck. So very much the opposite situation that Hire was in last game. Currently, Hire is sitting at 1 win, 4 losses, and 1 draw. This drops him down towards the 2/3, down towards the bottom of the conference at the moment. But if Hire is able to pick up another win here, he'll shoot right back up towards where he was in the top 5 or 6 spots in his conference. So this game, at the moment, because we're only halfway through, it's swinging so far back and forth. But if Hire is able to pick up this game again, he's right back where he was.
Oh, easily. And we do have Squirrel Mob coming in for this game in place of Pong once again. Bringing back Mardu Stacks for this pod. Honestly, I think Squirrel is really going to be looking for a break, even though Squirrel is just coming into the MLC.
That's okay. Squirrel Mob has a very, very tough competition in both the conference and the district division that he is in. Squirrel Mob is up against people like Spleenface and Sick Robot, some of the people that you expect to see at the top of every single tournament. And those are the kind of people that Squirrel Mob has to face in order to try and get off to the playoff weekend. So definitely is going to be trying as hard as he possibly can to pull those wins in. We also have Inkmoth and Silverboy at 1-3 and 0-4, respectively. going into the game here. If either of them are able to pick up a win, though, that would put them in the top half of the bracket. So again, early half of the stage means that it's very volatile, and whoever is playing, however things shake out later, it'll get rearranged time and time again. But these early wins matter quite a bit as to not only what you're playing, but also where you're able to be. And the what you win in your division is not quite as important as what you win in outside of your conference. So you definitely want to, or other way around, sorry, you definitely want to win inside your division instead of inside of your conference. So these wins don't matter quite as much as an interdivisional game might that we will see in the coming weeks. So while it's definitely important games and important wins, they're not quite as high stakes for some of the players who are coming in newer, like Pongo, or like James coming in for Pongo, or like who is replacing Rebel at the moment.
That's
Poppyphobia.
yeah,
Thank you.
Poppyphobia. Yep.
Poppyphobia is replacing Rebel, so they have a little bit of some leeway going into
It's a
it.
long season. It's a long season.
Yeah, that's what I was actually going to mention is like you said like, oh, at the beginning stages, and I'm thinking like, weren't there 5 games already? But that's like there's way more games to come, and that's not 5 games from each player. That's 5 games total where like each player has gotten about 2 games in. So really like it really is just getting started, which is interesting to see as well. So I'm hoping that this game, does shake up the standings. I do have a popular favorite in Sliverboy, just because, like I said, we were tying one on last night for sure. But I'm super excited to see it. Now, something else we talked about earlier when we were going through these lists, I'm going to bring it back to the deck analysts a little bit. There's some fun cards that don't pop up too often. Was there anything else that you guys really, really liked off of these lists that like really stood out as like we want to see it? Last time we called out that white card that totally took the game. So
I mean, for this one, I think I'm looking at like the removal spells out of Kurik and see what role Hire chooses to play in this game. There are going to be a lot of creatures in play worth killing, but if is Hire going to spend the time to try to do that, or if he's just going to try to win the game instead? Cards like Meathook Massacre, I think, are really going to be like a powerful key card of this matchup. If a good Meathook Massacre can get out there and wipe the board, Mono Green and Mardu stacks, they're going to have a hard time recovering from that. If Savala gets wiped and a couple dorks go with her, that's going to be tricky to come back from. So any of the removal, I'm curious to see where that's going to be pointed at. That's what I'm most interested to see.
It's also really good when you're taking a look at the Curiosity Control decks. I mean, the big downside about that is that you are trying to attach auras to creatures, and anyone who's played Limited knows that that is a very tall order when there's no card advantage immediately. So Hire's got a ton of options to deal with things before creatures get enchanted too.
Yeah, is he going to be spread too thin though? If right from the get-go there's a Selvala and there's an Archon of Emeria and there's a creature with an aura on it, Hire's going to have some juicy targets. Which one is he going to go for? Or is Hire just going to say, I'm going to ignore everyone, I'm going to try to win before they get a chance to get their engines rolling?
This Curiosity Control list I really like, though. When we're talking about some cool cards, Wandering Archaic is in this list.
Grafdigger's Cage.
Grafdigger's Cage, yes.
Against almost all strategies, I think, especially at this particular table. I'm pretty sure Kirk is going to be doing things that allow things to come out of the library. I know
Chainer's a big part in Kirk, so
Chainer is definitely that one.
That's going to put a stop to a lot of those lines.
Silvala, obviously, a lot of the green tutors are shut off by that, and stacks. I mean, Underworld Breach is still in this deck, so that Grafdigger's Cage could pull some weight against the Underworld Breach inside of the Mardu stacks list.
Now, I do want to go ahead and bring a little bit of attention to a couple key cards that I know if I was playing this Curiosity list, I would be looking for, especially going third. I would definitely be looking for like either this Collector Roof or this Dalthy Voidwalker to try and pop off in turn 1, turn 2. It's going to put a lot of pressure on our opposing players, and it'll actually help branch out into maybe even those early, Eldritch Evolution off of Vial Smasher into an easy Seaborn Muse, because we do only have one blue pot at the table today, right? So
that's definitely going to determine what happens for sure.
Yeah, so it's resolving.
It looks like these they're drawing up right now, so I think we're going to move over to doing the commentary. But yeah, Fern and Caleb, thank you so much for the in-depth analysis and the standings, all that. And yeah, it looks like me, Dylan, and Cam are going to start tearing it up here.
Alrighty.
Let's do it. Yeah.
See you later.
All right, y'all don't have too much fun now.
See y'all later too. All right, so here we go. Like we said before, we got Higher starting this off with Mono Black Crick Storm. Ink Moth coming in with Mono Green. I don't think Shia is supposed to be there.
I believe that is still valid, but we could be wrong on that. Maybe something was swapped.
We'll see. Mardu Stacks being piloted by Squirrel Mob here, Alicia, who smiles at death, and then Sliver Boy coming at you with the 4-color Curiosity Control Thrasios Vial Smasher here.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, I think Higher is going to set. I mean, obviously Higher's going first, but I think Higher's going to set the pace for this game. If we see an explosive start from Higher, everyone's going to have to change what their turn 1 looks like, I think. If Higher doesn't really do a ton, everyone can say, okay, maybe we can, maybe we can push this game into mid-range.
And I'm so excited to see even just like we were talking about, even just the mulligan decisions. I'm really, really excited to see how hard Squirrel Mob and Sliver Boy are going to have to go on this to kind of play reactively, like you guys were saying. I know if I were sitting in either of those seats, my bones would be itching because
we were talking about this earlier. The mulligans, the turn 0, but all this is the early game of CEDH. Where once we start turn 1, that's the mid game. But right now we're in the early game, and the mulligan decisions is a big part of that. And I think what you said is exactly correct. The 2 slower controlling decks, I think, almost have a little bit more pressure put on them to make sure that they have a good turn 1, because the other 2 decks are going to have a good turn 1. They're very proactive monocolor decks. They will have a strong turn 1. So as the reactive deck, your turn 1 has to be ready for that.
And here's something else that maybe this only applies to me, but does anyone else feel like they play better after their warm-up game?
Oh yeah.
Does Higher have an advantage over the other players because he's got his magic brain spinning around already?
So Higher didn't get to actually make a ton of decisions. Higher lost before it got to Higher's turn.
Keeping your first 7 is a decision.
That is a decision, yeah.
So I can definitely relate to like getting into the mode, getting into the groove. But there's also like, if that had been a 2-hour stacks game, there's also like a burnout that happens where you end up truly like your brain cannot function. So yeah, and the good thing there was a break as well, for sure. Now it looks like we've got Ink Moth, Sliver, and Squirrel Mob all on second 7 right now. So we're not going quite deep yet, but we're getting there. Something I wanted to ask you two is, have you seen people observing priority order when mulliganing? Are we doing proper mulligans here, or are people just kind of winging it?
I'm not really sure. I don't know if I've seen that or have been told one way or another yet. It looks like I don't see Higher's cards on the table, so I'm not sure if Higher has locked into their first 7 yet, which if that is the case, if they haven't locked in, then maybe we're not observing strict priority on that. From what I'm seeing, it looks like Higher's still thinking, but I'm not sure yet. It looks like we're just winging it.
Looks like Squirrel Mob is going to 6 too, by the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I said, if I were on a stacks deck at a pod with 2 very fast decks, I would be mulliganing aggressively for something that does anything. A Drannith Magistrate, an Archon of Emeria, anything that does something immediately. You can't. I don't think you have the freedom of saying, "Oh, just play something on turn 2." You might not get to turn 2.
No, it can't even be like a value piece. Like it's got to be like a hard stack.
I would settle for removal. I think I would settle for like some type of removal or something.
Maybe a Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah, just because the 2 aggressive deck are extremely reliant on that commander, I think I would probably keep like a Swords to Plowshare hand if that were an option, which it looks like we are playing Swords to Plowshare in this deck. So that could be.
Mardu Stacks is on both Path and Swords.
And Fire Covenant? I love that card.
I love that. If you're on Swords, I love being on Path also. Have an extra. Both Path is, I think, oftentimes better than Swords, weirdly, in our format. This pod, maybe not so much, but there's a lot of decks that do not run a 10 and 6.
Yep. And the Fire Covenant could be absolutely explosive too, if everybody, especially with stuff like Brostorm being out there, like having 2-3 creatures exploded will just absolutely set you back to the Stone Age.
Thrasios and Vial Smasher also have small butts, so they're pretty easy to kick. Crick, the only thing about Crick and the is that Crick can get a lot of +1/+1 counters too.
That'll be something that Squirrel Mob has to look out for if they are looking to cast a Fire Covenant.
But that's
the Kirk. Kirk can get big at instant speed if there's a black spell that's being cast.
But that's what's nice about having Path and Swords as other options for that then too.
Yeah.
Looks like Squirrel Mob is keeping 6.
Excellent. I love to see that.
Love to see. Yes, exactly. Really appreciate that for the casting.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Looks like Hire's on 6 also.
3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So it looks like just about everybody, and we've probably got Sliver Boy still going through it.
Makes sense. This is a hard deck. So this deck, 4-color Curious Control, is a hard deck to play, and an even harder deck to mulligan once you know you're going 4th.
And even a harder deck to play in mulligan when you're going last too. My experience with Curiosity Control is that like it is a slow start. What you really want to be doing is like getting your advantage piece out on turn 1, especially with how CEDH has sped up with the printing of some other cards. Like turn 2 Thrasios, turn 3 Thrasios activation that's not fast enough anymore. So like.
Oh my God, we've got the Jewel Lotus right off. Sorry to cut you off.
But this is, all right, here we go. Turn 1, Hire goes Swamp into Jewel Lotus into Crick, going down to 34 life.
This is the play that we were talking about. If Hire has this start, if he can find the Jewel Lotus, the pace has been set. We are going fast.
So here we go. So we're going to see what Hire might be able to follow up with here. It looks like we're just going right over to Inky's turn. Yeah, shipped over to Inkmoth. We're going to see a Yavimaya to make everything a forest.
Solid.
Agreed.
Are we going to see double Jewel Lotus turn?
Oh, man.
I would really like that.
That would be insane, right?
All right.
Boreal Druid. Classic start.
I have so much love for Boreal Druid because people like to like poo-poo on Boreal Druid because it makes colorless, but extremely relevant. It makes snow mana.
Yes. Something that can mean not.
Oh my God, I forget about that all the time. So Squirrel Mob is going to play a Polluted Delta, Polluty Duty if you're hip. We're going to go get some sort of a black land. It's going to be a black-red land this time to cast a Gamble.
Turn 1 Gamble. Love it. Risky. On a mulligan, no less. Squirrel Mob is on 6 right now, so this is, I think, 5-card Gamble?
Yes. That would be a 5-card Gamble here, yeah. So we have a 1 in 5 chance that we're going to pitch the card that we go find and turn this Gamble into an Entomb.
But I mean, remember the MLC final game was won on a 50-50 gamble. So
I almost forgot about that. Yeah, that was an exciting way to finish out the whole MLC, and it will really panned out.
Yeah, Gamble
so
can be the best card in the world or the worst.
What's that, Tom?
I was just going to say Gamble can either be the best card in the world or the worst.
Yeah. But if you pitch something that it's not easy to get back, it's really a bummer. But like, thankfully, just so many decks now just run 8 types of recursion, have either entire strategies built around it or want stuff to go in the graveyard.
Underworld Breach has definitely changed the game in a lot of different ways, and making Gamble even better is probably near the top of those ways.
I'd like to point out, too, Gamble in Alicia, this specifically, is that if you just go get a creature that you end up having to pitch, your commander can get it back.
Very true.
Yep.
So you kind of minimize a lot of the room for error that's there. Looks like we roll a 5, so the 5th card is going to get pitched.
Ooh!
Mana Crypt. Whoa! Okay, so like strong chance that might have been the card that was gambled for.
Gamble often finds Mana Crypt, and I would not be surprised if I found that out. Oh, there's a line.
An LED.
Okay.
What's that? Who knows? I'm wondering how Squirrel Mob is playing this. If they're going with, I don't know, that was in my hand, I wasn't going to play it, or if they're saying, oh, that was the card.
So I know our faces aren't on the visual, but once that LED dropped, I made like full on Pogger's face. That was just awesome. So it's like the crypt going in the graveyard is really, really hurts, but following it up with the nonchalant LED is just absolutely beautiful.
We're getting confirmed that was the card that they gambled for. So womp womp. Plans have been spoiled.
Oh yeah. So we're gonna see a Windswept Teeth come out for Sliver Boy here. That's gonna get cracked immediately, bringing their life total down to 39. And we're gonna see.
I would expect some type of mana dork.
I'm after.
Okay.
Imperial Steel.
Interesting.
Okay, so we're going to get a turn 1 tutor here, bringing the life total down to 37 if it resolves.
I believe Sliverboy did mulligan once or twice. I believe they're on maybe a 6. So that Imperial Seal could be looking for card advantage, maybe a Curiosity or a Curiosity Holder as a way to pull themselves back in this game. But it's very early. It's very difficult to say what it could be for now.
Yeah, so we're going to see this tutor go. We're going to see Dylan go take care of these dogs as well so that they stop barking in the background. But
I'm not hearing anything. You guys are good.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna still go take care of that nonetheless. Yeah. So let's take a look at this first turn here. We're seeing a tutor, another tutor that turned out to be an entomb to get an LED down, and then a turn 1 mana dork. So Higher going into his second turn has gotta feel a little pretty good, right?
I don't see
A
any
little loosey-goosey.
so I'd be feeling a little bit good if I were higher.
Yeah, no stacks piece came into play on this first
Nope,
turn cycle here, so we get to untap that swamp, potentially play a second one, and then really fire this thing off from here.
Yeah, no, so Kirk does need a couple of pieces to get going, right? Kirk isn't all encompassing. Kirk doesn't do anything on its own, right? Kirk needs other black cards. So as long as Higher can have a backup play here, he might be in a really good spot.
Yeah.
I think that was a Phyrexian Tower.
You are absolutely correct, Alan. Good eye. This is exactly what that is. So that can potentially make even more mana here.
It looks like we're going for attack right away, which to me says perhaps there are no black spells that Higher is interested in casting right now. The Kirk would get a little bit bigger, gaining him a little more life since the life link. So it might make that might make him want to cast spells before, but it looks like maybe that's not the case. We're looking to gain the life beforehand.
Yeah,
Maybe
it
this is
seems
just
like
a setup turn here.
which, I mean, getting that life back is also clutch because it's gonna go down again. Like it's gonna be constant battle as far as keeping your life at a decent place with Carrick. So I'm excited to see what could come out of this. I don't see who the attack was on either.
I'm thinking Squirrel, considering the
37. Yep.
cap and then down to 37. Yeah, so we're gonna see Ink Moth go play a Castle Garenbrig, I believe is the name of that land, that you put 4 mana into to tap for 6 green to use only for creatures. We're going to play a Utopia Sprawl onto the Yavimaya because it is a forest in addition to its other types.
Oh, nice.
That's kind of a really cool Utopia Sprawl tech right there. And then it looks like...
That looks like Sovala might be. Is that what that is?
Sovala, Manglehorn.
Interesting.
Oh,
that
very
LED
cool.
is going.
yeah, that LED is not long for this world. So this is also going to make it really difficult for potential bigger storm turns from players as well.
Now, what's interesting is I'm going to assume, this may be wrong, but I would assume if I were playing that Higher has removal in his hand. That turn 1 Kuruk into turn 2 nothing means to me that he probably has some interaction in his hand that he's waiting for it to hopefully get rid of the Manglehorn. But Higher is playing a decent amount of artifacts, so he may be looking to point some of that removal at the Manglehorn instead now, probably at the end of Sliverboy's turn if it comes to that, but we'll see.
Yeah, there's a solid amount of options as far as the 1 mana. Because right now, Higher is only on a single black mana. We're not going to sacrifice Carrick to do that. So there are a few options that can take care of that. So we'll see if it ends up happening. It looks like that Manglehorn, blew up the only target, the LED, and it was not cracked in response. So.
Yeah, Manglehorn is probably... I don't see any artifacts in play, which is normally when Manglehorn's at its best because the artifacts are coming in play. They're going to come and tap.
So for Squirrel Mob here, we're going to see a Phyrexian Tower of their own in order to cast Goblin Bombardment then. So we are one step closer to seeing a big demon attack to take someone out then.
If that Master of Cruelties that we know is in the Squirrel Mob's deck connects with anyone, we can sacrifice with the Goblin Bombardment to finish them off if necessary.
Oh, interesting. That's very funny that the Master of Cruelty makes that super lethal. That's awesome.
So Sliver Boy comes out with a command tower and passes. Looks like they did draw the card that they Imperial Sealed last turn. And we're going to see Higher snap something off on an end step here. Looks like we're getting an opposition agent here.
Solid. That's definitely going to, I mean, there's been 2 tutors already, so it's a little bit behind, but it still creates an optimal state for Higher. You know, just being able to put everybody off tutors feels really, really good right now.
So
Not a bad spot to be in.
no, it's not. Opposition agent is in play now, and that definitely starts to hit the board a lot differently. I know Sovala does have a lot of green creature tutors as well. By the way, they didn't run out Sovala last turn too, so that does certainly slow them down a little bit too. But I understand why Manglehorn definitely feels important here still.
Yeah, I can understand why Inkmoth might have chosen Manglehorn instead. Normally, Sovala comes out first every single time, but in a pod like this, it may be better to be a little bit reactive first. I would be, again, like I said, afraid of Hire's possible removal, but yeah, we'll see. It really depends on what's in Hire's hand. Hire has a lot of rituals too. They may not care about the Manglehorn at all.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck is that card?
We're gonna see. Is this a final parting? It's 3 and 2 black for an interesting tutor. I think
1 in hand, 1 in bush.
I believe that is the bush. Yeah, I believe that is exactly
very, very scary in this deck because you can
find a reanimate and any creature that you want, right? And you can cast reanimate instantly with Kirk. Sorry to cut you off, but my brain went, oh yeah, that's probably what's going on.
Yep. So you can put like I don't, let's see, are we looking at Villas? We can do reanimate Villas right now. Like
and reanimate Villas with so that's good. We maybe have a win attempt going because Villas and Kirk out at the same time. If you don't know, that's a lot of life and a lot of cards drawn. Now, can we? I believe this rules works the way I'm thinking it. Can Villas activate to try to kill a creature and then respond to that by doing it again? So even if there's only 1 creature. With Kirk and Villas out, you can draw in patterns of 2 as many cards as you have life. Yes,
I believe so.
That sounds incredibly correct.
Yeah, because Villas will have 1 black mana. You can pay the ability, which is paying 2 life to target something. But Kirk was going to say that you draw those cards as soon as you pay the cost, and then you can respond by doing it again by trying to kill the same creature over and over again. And effectively, Hire is probably going to draw around 28 cards, I believe. So this isn't a turn 2 win like we were thinking, but this could be a turn 3 win. Now, what I would be afraid of is Sliver Boy Imperial Sealed on turn 1 and then turn 2 land pass. To me, that screams delay. Some type of hard counter spell is what I would be afraid of right now.
I'm thinking that there's the possibility of having 2 potential interactive pieces between like a 1 mana counter and then maybe
like a removal spell.
Veil of Summer being like another piece of backup for you too. Not that Veil of Summer
in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And there's the attempted reanimate.
All right, which is free because you get to pay life off of Crick.
Right,
Phyrexian Mana's busted.
It's going to be 26 cards instead of 28, rather. I forgot.
Yeah.
And are we? Oh, so it's on cast that Villas that Carrick takes up. Right.
Now, you know what? A lot of these decks could also be on things like Noxious Revival as well.
Definitely.
So that's another good way to get around this. But it looks like we're just going to see Force of Negation pitching Training Grounds from Sliver Boy.
Good one.
This is a humongous necessity for Sliver Boy to take care of here, but having to pitch that Training Grounds is a great advantage piece alongside of Thrasios here, so that definitely does hurt, but definitely worth it in the long run. Otherwise, Hire is just going to get way too far ahead.
Yep.
And that's even with the Manglehorn. Hire is going to be able to just absolutely would have been able to absolutely just blast off from there. It's like truly the ideal play.
And Kirk with all of the rituals, I mean, it makes them all so good because you don't need mana to cast them.
Yeah,
you already have it basically.
So Hire ended up going down and attacking Sliver Boy, by the way, too. Yep. And then we moved over here. Yeah. Then we on Inkmoth's turn got our attack on and ended up casting Sovala, so we get to see that come in now.
Over to Squirrel Mob's turn. I'm curious to see how Squirrel Mob is going to follow this up. We were just going with Alessia. Okay, sure. Yeah. Solid play. Don't have much else to do. I would assume but it looks like the board is starting to get a little bit nuts. I would be starting to worry about Silvala right now because that's already a lot of green sources in play.
Oh, and we're going to see an end step
Vault?
Limb Duels Vault from Sliverboy here.
A Limb Duels Vault. Okay, this is going to be interesting. At 29 life, not as ideal of a situation, but Sliverboy is still going to get to look through a big chunk of their deck. If I'm Sliverboy, I'm probably looking for some type of like board wipe at this point. Are we running Toxic Deluge? Is that can we find Toxic Deluge in this deck? Because that might be a good one. Doesn't look like Toxic Deluge is in here, but I imagine there are some forms of removal that we'll be looking for with that Limb Duels Vault to get rid of Kuruk or Silvala.
Yeah, it looks like there is Fire Covenant in here. So again, we were talking in the pregame that that is a little bit risky with Kuruk in play because of the nature of some of these instants and Kuruk getting more counters there. But that's still definitely an option. So as long as they can find these options within the top couple of chunks of 5, we should be in great shape.
It's also important to note that this is still a Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation deck. Sliverboy, Imperial Soldier turn 1, and is Limb Duels vaulting right now. If they untap, play a land, Thassa's Consult, the game could still be over.
Then that's it right
I would be very surprised if the Curious Control list won before all these other fast decks are attempted to turn 3, but it's definitely in the realm of possibilities.
Sometimes your opening hand has one of the 2 pieces or, the tutors that you need to get where you need to go. And
even
you find yourself here.
Might have just had 3 lands, 2 tutors, and you go, yeah, this is good. I'll try to win on turn 3. See if that's good enough.
And that's with everybody tapped out right now. And in these 3 colors, you're probably like I'd be worried about an endurance from Inkmoth, and that's about it. Like,
yeah, you are fearful of endurance. Although I don't know how many cards Inkmoth is going to have in their hand at this point. Where they've definitely played a couple. They may not have a ton in it, but endurance is definitely something to be afraid of, right?
Yeah.
If you're going for that Thassa's Oracle line, we don't even know if that's what we're going for.
Outside of that, though, there's really not a ton that I would be super afraid of. So, like, if that's the direction that that Sliverboy is trying to go, it seems pretty open here. Now, again, we could just be looking for
it could be anything,
some interaction here, but it looks like they decided on their final pile after their 3rd look at 5. So cards 11 through 15, I believe, is what they were.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if Sliverboy is looking for more interaction or looking for a win here. The game could definitely go a couple different ways right now.
I'd love to see either. And yeah, I did see the Fire Covenant in there. There wasn't a ton else that I would be going hard for as far as interaction, though. Like,
do you have one particular piece that shuts down all of these decks? You have Grafdigger's Cage, which could be helpful, I suppose. But I would be looking for something a little bit more specific, I think, especially after the turn 1 Imperial Seal, depending on what it was.
Gilded Drake's not quite gonna really do too much advantage for Sliverboy, unfortunately, but it would definitely stop someone. Like, I'd hate to get hit by it, but I couldn't see it being an optimal play. There's other really cool stuff though, for sure. I would most expect something that's you're right, either a win or the big wipe. So we'll see what happens.
Well, let's see. It doesn't look like we got a land for Sliverboy quite yet, but we are gonna see the Gilded Drake though. Here we go.
Who does that go after? Does that go? I would be thinking maybe Silvala. Does that go after maybe the opposition agent? Need more tutoring to do?
Maybe Crick, and then you put higher really big on the back foot. Then you can't use the Phyrexian mana to cast any of your spells anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of options right now. This looks like 3 cards in hand from Squirrel Mob. To me, I'm not sure. This may be a misevaluation. I don't think Alessia is particularly threatening in this state. The Lion's Eye Diamond has been blowed up. I don't see anything else really going on from Alessia. A little bit of a slow start. They mulliganed a little bit. So I don't know if I'd be looking that way with Gilded Drake. I think I'd be looking... I don't know. See, it depends a lot on Sliver's hand. If Sliver's got some tutors in hand, or if Sliver's got some artifacts in hand, that could influence the decision very highly. If they want to go Oppo, Manglehorn, or Silvala or Kirk, and just take someone's win condition, take someone's commander out of the situation.
And yeah, we do have the full ETB. There's nothing stopping it from it, if and when it does resolve. There's nothing stopping the ETB from going off. So there will be a switcheroo. I am excited to see
slot or anything.
Yeah.
Have we heard a target? Do we know who Sliver's targeting yet?
Not Not that I've seen. So
I imagine this is a very tough decision.
This is a very tough. It looks like it's Silvala, Heart of the Wilds, though.
That's who I was leaning towards. Silvala definitely does the most in this particular situation, I think, and it shuts Inkmoth off the most, I think.
Yeah, it'll definitely get you the most amount of mana this way as well, because Crick would only work well with spells that have black pips in your hand, whereas you can use Silvala mana to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good choice.
What I was going to say is that Sliverboy is on black, so Keurig could have a little bit of advantage, but yeah, it's off to higher, and we'll see what ends up happening there, and we get to see a little bit of art class while we're in here too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Important to note that Hire can do the exact same thing if he has any tutor at all. If he can demonic tutor for Animate Dead or something like that, he can present the same win as he did last time. So Hire's not out of it just yet.
No, not even close, and I'm really excited. And there's an additional, like, if it does end up being a turn where Hire wants to gas out, there is an additional 2 mana off of that opposition agent if he does want to sacrifice it as well. So there's potential going on right now, and I'm really excited to see where it ends up. And we've got another land drop, which is beautiful. And is this the one we did say this? We were looking at this list. It is running 35 lands, which is just absolutely incredible. And that's that is including the MDFCs, or no?
No MDFCs. Yeah, it's just 35 straight lands. The only reason, I'm not really sure. There could be a bunch of reasons why 35. 35 is a little high for CDH. Well, let's stop talking about that and talk about this Buried Alive. That's a pretty good one.
Holy cow. Yeah, that is pretty good right there. So Buried Alive is pretty much going to be able to go get all of the big fatties that are in Hire's list, so that way it makes for some very easy reanimating coming up here. So
what are we looking for here? Do we look for a Scourge Familiar Asmodeus the Archfiend? Do we look for Chainer combo? Do we look for, are we getting Gary into the graveyard too? There's a lot of options, and I'm, to be honest, not 100% sure on which one is the right choice, but you get 3. I think what I was saying about the 35 lands is I could understand the 35 lands if you're using them as a source of almost card advantage. Since your deck, you don't have card advantage in the command zone, and every single one of your tutors effectively kind of wins you the game because you have so many like 1-card tutors in this deck. You really just need to, I guess, maybe make sure that you can continuously hit your land drops. You don't need to ramp. You just need to make sure that you hit them, and all of your spells kind of do the same thing, sort of. So as long as you can cast one of them, you maybe can make a win out of that.
Well, 2 things to be fair as well. Number one of your lands is Bazaar of Baghdad, so that's not going to make any mana. Technically, you have 34 in a land and a spell land then. The other thing is that your mana curve in Crick is so high that if Crick ends up leaving the battlefield, like, you still need to be able to reliably cast the spells in your hand. And at 28, 29 lands, that's not going to happen with cards like Scourge Familiar and Asmodeus the Archfiend in your list.
It looks like we may have a little bit of a life total situation too. We'll be getting that switched out very quickly. I think maybe Hire's life should be 1 lower than it is, but we'll get confirmation on that in just a moment.
No, I think it's maybe Sliverboy's is 1 or 2.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
But it looks like Sliverboy's life was fixed. Yeah, it looks like it was just the missed 2 life off of Limduel's fault from looking at 2 other piles right there. So the cards Hire goes get. We can go and see that
Necrotic Ooze.
That's the one on top of the graveyard right there.
Yeah, that Necrotic Ooze sure is a good one. I would imagine that means Flesh Writher is underneath that Necrotic Ooze. That's what I would assume. Yeah.
Alan, every time someone plays Necrotic Ooze, I think of you. Just so you know.
Who knows? Yeah.
Me?
Yeah. Every time I play, just playing against you and like Dina and Marin so much. Like every time Necrotic Ooze comes up, I think of you.
You are the person that I've lost to with Necrotic Ooze the most in CDH for sure.
Hands down. Yeah.
It means a lot. Thank you guys. I'm really this pile. I love any pile with news in it, and recently I built Carrick and got to play it a little bit, and seeing a different news pile is a true joy. This Asmodeus pile is absolutely bonkers. Being able to draw your whole deck is such a good feel. Now the question is here: will Hire be resolving it and then just letting it ride, like attack and pass, or is this going to be something that gets acted on immediately? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say. So catching up here, yeah, we do get Scourge Familiar, Asmodeus, and Necroticus all in the graveyard off Buried Alive. We do see a Mind Stone come out for higher than, and then end up swinging over at Silverboy for a nice fat 6 damage to gain a bunch of that life back. Then
Commander damage too. Kirk gets big. That
Yeah.
commander damage could come
So
up.
this is pretty relevant. This is now the second hit that Sliverboy has taken from Crick. So we're looking at, what are we looking at? Like
Commander
8
damage.
commander damage right now, I think, if my math's correct.
We have
8 commander damage, and that's 8 life gained back for hire. And
Yeah.
it looked like he just lost a few more to Manglehorn and the Gilded Drake attacking, which is 100% correct. Like, it's attack higher every turn you're able at this point. And it looks like he's also leaving the opposition agent up. The life total, when you're around 30, like, you've got a little bit of wiggle room. You want that opposition agent to stay on the field rather than protecting your life total.
It's probably not going to block for real, but the threatening of a block, I think, is important, right? Being able to threaten a block, meaning that you're not going to get attacked, meaning you're not going to lose that life in a deck where your life is very important. I think leaving the Oppo's back is a good call.
So we didn't see too much else from Inkmoth besides the attack. I'm sure that losing Sovala was a big hit for them. But we are going to see Squirrel Mob get the draw for their turn and then do a little bit of tinking as they're thinking about what we want to do here. So it looks like we're going to pay a life to get that 1 tap land in, and then we're going to cast a Recruiter of the Guard to do a little bit of searching.
Now, if you're recruiting of the guard right now, what are you looking for? What's stopping the table? I think I'm looking for something to slow everyone down, but I'm not sure what does that. I think I'm feeling a little too slow.
Yeah. So there's a small handful of rule of law effects you can get, but because it's Recruiter,
I think what's probably good that we're not mentioning is that they have chosen not to search because of the opposition agent.
you know what? That is also a good point.
Yes, so good call. They've decided to know that and just play a 3-mana 2/2. Probably not what they wanted to do when they were dreaming up this game, but it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. No, it's still definitely there, especially because it looks like there are going to be a lot of beats coming in. Crook's getting really big. Sovala's certainly capable of attacking for quite a lot. So I'm just having extra bodies on the board can't be that big.
Yeah.
It can't be that bad, I meant.
Even with blockers, hire's still coming out positive there because of the life gain. Like,
True.
Yeah, we could be deciding that everyone's plans have been thwarted several times. It may be time to say, okay, how do we just get bodies in play? How do we just do this the fair way?
Yeah. So for Sliverboy, we're going to see Thrasios come down.
With only 2 mana sources. So extremely fair Thrasios.
Yes, extremely fair. We're going to see a tapped Mana Crypt. That Manglehorn coming back, tapping the Mind Stone and the Mana Crypt as soon as they come in. So unable to use that this turn, but at least we're going to be set up for a Thrasios activation on the following turn.
Yeah, still moving a little bit slower probably than ideal, but that's okay. We're chugging along. The engines are getting there. Thrasios in 4 mana. So step 1 to setting up the 4-color engine, or at least one of them, is pretty good.
And Higher showing off some finger guns there. We're going to...
Everyone's waiting is what I think. What that means is there's a standoff going on
there's
right now.
definitely a bit of
to wait till the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, so we're gonna see Higher tap a couple of mana here, and we're gonna get a Diabolic Tutor.
Let's go. That's exactly what we were talking about. We're really excited to see this card. It's not my favorite art on the card. I'm like I said, I lean more towards the Sneaky Snake art, or at worst the Liliana Chandra art. But this one's really, really good, and just the utility of 2 mana 4 life, tutor directly to hand is so beautiful right now. I'm wondering.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say it's insane that this card, a 4-mana tutor, is playable in CEDH. I never thought I saw the day when I came from casual to CEDH. I'm like, okay, I understand Diabolic Tutor's bad. Nope, it can be good if you have the right commander.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
definitely not a card you see every day.
I would be shocked if we didn't see a Reanimate or something like that right now. But I also, I loved Hire's finger guns because it's not your typical, like, everybody's being held back and ready to explode right now. It's just like a standoff that's kind of like we're all in this, like, just kind of slowly getting value phase right now. I think the Hire's in the most explosive position out of anybody, I'd say.
Yeah, I think if I'm him, I'm a little bit nervous about a potential endurance coming from Inkmoth.
Yep.
Outside of that, I don't know what else I'd be nervous about. I mean, we already saw one piece of free interaction come from Sliverboy, so that significantly drops the chance that they have a second piece of free interaction in their hand.
I think
Although
you just got to go.
I will say, though, running out Thrasios may indicate that there's like a Fierce Guardianship in the hand, too.
Or even where are we on red? So that could also be a deflecting SWAT. If there's some sort of targeted reanimation effect, a SWAT would absolutely derail that.
100%. Yeah, I would imagine Animate Dead is the tutor here, or is the target is what we're looking for right here. And yeah, deflecting SWAT would definitely mess that day up. I think if you're higher, you just go for it though.
We're gonna see. This is a lot of mana that higher is tapping here. It looks like it's at least another 3. And it is. We're gonna see Chainer.
Yeah, Chainer will do it too. This is a little bit more difficult to counter, so probably a better target. Higher, knowing how his deck works. I love to see that. This can't be targeted by Fierce Guardianship, so if this is a tutor target, I love to see. That's a great play.
So now this is where things get really interesting, because for a total of 2, 4, 6, like 9 life, Crick can just put
Necrotic Ooze in play.
Exactly, off of Chainer. And then that's where everything starts to get a little haywire for the rest of the table.
Yeah, if that comes in, that means that Necrotic Ooze will be able to activate abilities with Scourge Familiar and Asmodeus the Archfiend, which means that we can start discarding cards and drawing our entire deck with
discard 3, draw 7, discard 3, draw 7, discard 3, draw 7, rinse and repeat, much like L'Oreal tells you, and then you'll have your whole deck in your hand.
It's so insane. So way back, I built a Villas deck right when it was spoiled, and I was like, "Oh, cool! They put Yawgmoth's Bargain in the command zone. Like that's great." And it really, like this sort of interaction with Scourge Familiar and Asmodeus really reminds me of the stuff that you could do with that. Like just absolutely unhinged, mono black, just put every card in your hand. It's so strong. And I love seeing that this is just like a totally viable deck in here.
Different style of play that we're used to. I think we're used to thinking that like you have to be able to back up what you're doing, right? Like that's part of CEDH. You have to be able to protect yourself. But higher on this Storm deck is saying, no, I don't have to protect myself. I just have to be able to present to win every turn. If you counter me, okay, it's fine. You counter me. Next turn, I'm just going to try to win again. You have another counter spell? If you do, that's okay. I'll just try next turn. If you don't, then I win. I love that play style, being aggressive like that in a 4-player deck like this. I think you get rewarded a lot for just making your opponents happy.
So we saw higher attack Sliverboy again with the Crick as well, getting a little bit more life back to make the Chainer activation hurt a lot less. We just saw him pick up his graveyard, choosing to return Necrotic Ooze to the field, and now this is where we might start to see some things go. We just saw him point at Asmodeus, the Archfiend, so we're looking at the possibility of being able to draw 7 cards here for another 6 life.
I'm looking through, not seeing any stifles.
You know how many cards are in Hire's hand right now? Oh, we're digging.
I do know. Yes, at least 7 now, because we're just paying 6 life to get 7 cards off of Asmodeus, and it looks like we're revealing a couple of things here. One being I
believe these are discarded cards through Scourge Familiar, or are we there yet? The Asmodeus I know is going to draw the cards, but the cards will be exiled as long as Asmodeus is play, but hilariously enough, Asmodeus is not in play.
Right, yeah, so you'll be able to keep all those cards in your hand immediately here.
I imagine what Hire is explaining right now is the loop of being able to draw 7 with the 3 mana invested perk Phyrexian off of Asmodeus, and then with those 7 cards, you can discard 3 cards since you can activate Scourge Familiar's ability from the graveyard, discarding 3 cards, adding 3 black, activating Asmodeus again, drawing 7 cards, discarding 3 cards, making black, etc., etc. Hire should be able to draw through his entire deck for paying no more life at this point, and I imagine we're going to see a win attempt.
I would expect so too, yeah. So we're looking for a couple of specific cards at this point then, specifically Gray Merchant of Asphodel, and trying to rebuy Gray Merchant of Asphodel many times.
Really interesting. So there's Gary. There must have been mana floating, would be my guess, to be able to resolve the Gary, because
they'd be able to use the mana off of the off of Crick for life and off of the Scourge Familiar
Oh,
too.
Scourge Familiar, yes, of course.
We are in full God mode right now. We can make
Yes.
mana, draw cards. We can do it all at will. Oh, that's
And
mind
we've got some
break.
interaction.
Mind break trap.
That is the mind break trap. I know the Gary right now. That's gonna
Now the Gary is on the stack.
because an exiled Gary cannot come back from the graveyard.
Oh boy, oh boy. And I was over here feeling good about Sliver Boy's smaller chance of having free interaction for creatures even. And here we go. We're seeing Mind Break Trap do really well.
There are choices here. There has to be. Let me just check the list and make sure I know. Is there no, I don't see any Imp's Mischief. There's no Imp's Mischief.
It does not look to be Imp's Mischief, which would be like one of the only things in mono black that would be able to get you out of this situation.
Oh no, it's not even in play. This is still in the stack, so it's not even like Hire can kill his Gary Merchant in response or anything like that. This thing, I don't know. I don't know the list as well as Hire, so I'm not gonna call him out yet. I'm not gonna say he's out of it yet, because if anyone can win through this, I'm sure it's Hire.
Yeah, I mean if this does get exiled, we're getting to the point where like we have to Praetor's Grasp someone else for their Gary,
which could still work.
Well, what I'm saying here is there's a pivot. Caleb's given us the heads up that we may see a pivot to Kakusho from here, and I do believe we saw a lot of sense. Go to the graveyard already. So
Kakusho is a nice backup here, especially when you're able to kind of mitigate a lot of the life loss that you've had this game. Kakusho is kind of nice.
Yeah, being able to, I would imagine, sacrifice Kakusho and replay Kakusho and sacrifice reanimate, go back and forth. And with Chainer, you're going to be able to make sure that you have, once you're gaining that life, Chainer will allow you to pay that life to bring the Kakusho back and whatnot. So
and there's the Praetor's Grasp.
We're going with the Praetor's Grasp. Okay, so it looks like the Mind Break Trap did resolve. So the Gray Merchant the Gray Merchant of Asphodel is exiled, but Praetor's Grasp on the stack. We may be looking for a more compact win con this way.
Yeah,
you know what? Oh, you still need to pay the mana that the spell cost off of.
We may be looking for Thassa's Oracle.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah,
but Fire just drew his entire deck, so there's probably like a Mox Diamond or something like that he can use to cast
to be able to get that out.
Thassa's Oracle, if that's what we're going for.
But the Manglehorn is still out there, so it does. I mean, I'm sure he's got the removal spell.
Yeah, a ton of removal.
He threw out a lot of color producing fast mana in those Asmodeus pitches. So I'm really interested to see what the pivot is here and how he's going to produce this mana. I mean, it could be as simple as he's just got some simple colored mana in hand and can go for it. But I'm very curious.
Yeah, well, whatever the answer that he feels he needs, he feels that Sliver Boy has, because that's who got the target of this Praetor's Grasp here. So,
and he did it very quickly too.
Yeah, exactly. So just waiting to get confirmation on exactly what that card was that he may have taken out of Sliver Boy's deck here.
Now, one thing that I'm curious about, Mastermind's Acquisition, Mode 2 says choose a card you own from outside the game and put it into your hand. I believe outside of your game only means sideboard. It does not mean exile, which is good, and it's extremely infuriating to me. So he can't get that Great Merchant back with Mastermind's Acquisition, which would be very clever, I think.
Yes, correct.
So
I wish it worked that way. I really, really, really wish cards that say from outside of the game just meant exile. So if it's path to exile, you can get it with one of those cards or something. That would be really good, but that's not the world we live in.
No, it's still inside of the game, though. It was still a part of this game.
It's outside of the game.
This is for a podcast that we'll do later instead of right now.
I think it's frustrating because exiled cards used to just say removed from the game. But anyway, okay, that's neither here nor there. Looks like we're getting a Sidisi. We're showing a Sidisi in play. Is that just moved to the top of the graveyard, it seems, right now?
Yeah, either that or it just exploited itself to go tutor for something.
It looks like that may... there's a lot going on right now. It looks like that could be happening. Sure. I'm very curious to see what that Praetor's Grasp took, though.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well.
So we're putting up... We're making mana by dumping cards right now, I believe.
Yeah, so activating Scourge Familiar, discarding a card, adding black mana, probably using the Asmodeus ability with the Necrotic Ooze to draw more cards, just to make sure that, there's no reason to not draw all of your cards at this point. You might as well have a full deck in your hand so you have all the information and all your resources available immediately. Hire is just going through this process, which is a little bit time consuming. He doesn't have the game won yet. You know what I mean? The players still could have other things, but he is in an extremely good position right now, I'd say.
Yeah, agreed. And it looks like we are pitching some cards, I assume, to make some more mana to cast a Necropotence.
Interesting. Okay.
And we're going to discard a couple of more cards here that for an Arcane Signet. This will allow him to make a little bit more black mana without having to ditch a bunch of cards.
Wait a minute. Is this Necro?
Manglehorn is still out. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So someone will have to yell at Hire very quickly that Arcane Signet comes in tapped. But is this Necro? Is this because he doesn't have a win and he's already drawn his entire deck and he doesn't want to draw another card on his next turn to lose? Is that what this means?
I would be.
That's next level if that is the case.
Yeah.
That is a next level plan from Hire.
Necro does here since you already have the ability to draw all the cards that you want right now. But maybe, is there another card? Oh, Nykthos. Has he played a land this turn?
I believe he I don't know if
Nykthos is in the garbage.
Nykthos is in the garbage.
I'm pretty sure I saw that hit the.
I'm sure there's a plan. I'm trying to figure out what it is. Maybe someone in chat knows, but
I'm pretty sure because this is turn 4. I'm pretty sure he has played a land.
Yeah, I think you.
I know that he has not missed a drop. Playing 35 lands certainly helps that.
Yes, yeah, that is definitely full there.
Yeah.
And so we still don't know the Praetor's target as well.
We don't know the Praetors. That's
which is fair. I think I'm just used to playing that card online when I kind of like have to be told and say what the card that I'm going to get is. But the actual way that you play Praetor's Grasp is that you're taking the card in secret. So you can really use the lack of information to even mess someone up, make them think that they have a line in their deck that they no longer do too.
All right. So he's got a lot of cards in hand for sure. Like
a lot
probably
of cards and a lot of decisions to make.
Yeah, all sorts. The lines are very open at this point, I think. Like there's still a lot of different ways you could go. I'm
thinking it's got to be something with Kakusho.
But there's the Manglehorn.
Oh, here we go. We got a Deadly Rollick targeting the Manglehorn, and now this will unlock all of the mana rock issues that Hire was having here.
Yeah, maybe we can make sure that he may be running out of resources. That making a mana is a little bit, resource intensive. You got to discard a lot of cards. You need a lot of cards to make a win. So this extra mana could be helpful here. Is there?
I just hope he still got it because he was pitching a lot of them.
Yeah, there's been a lot of cards. He's got a thick graveyard over there.
Yes, and a lot of it was, I think, that fast mana because the Manglehorn was out. I think he was pitching it very, very quickly.
Interesting. I don't see Yawgmoth Will in this list. So this what you see is what you get. I don't know if there's a ton of recursion besides the actual reanimation spells, which obviously do the trick, but they don't get everything back.
Yeah, Animate Dead and Necromancy are still recursion spells that we have available to us as in Hire. And it looks like we're going to see a Murderous Rider / Swift End come in.
I think Hire is in the turn. Is that what's going on? Are we just making an enormous Kirk and controlling the board and passing the turn? Is that what's happening?
I think that there is a chance that that's going on here. I think there's a pretty solid chance. It sounds like Hire's already used a bunch of their resources just to get to this point, which is still not a point that we'll be able to get there quite yet. Looks like we have a judge question about Murderous Rider here, though.
Yeah, it looks like we don't know what the judge question is exactly, but I think maybe we're just getting some clarification.
Maybe it's something to do with if he pitches it to make black mana, does it go back into his deck or does it stay in his graveyard? Because Murderous Rider has the clause that says that if it would be to go into your graveyard, it goes on the bottom of your library instead.
Oh, interesting.
Without knowing anything else, apparently Hire was getting clarification about being able to cast either side. So I am wrong, but
yeah. So that means he's looking to potentially cast it as a creature, right? So I think my theory may be what's going on. I think Hire may be looking to pass a turn, which I don't know that necessarily means that he's out of the game if he does that. But it seems like there should be some way to construct a win here, but there is just so much going on with all these options. It's hard to see.
And there's 3 cards left in the library, it looks like. I believe that is the library.
It's the library over there. Okay, great.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you literally are looking at your whole deck in your hands, 99 cards, and you're going, how do I put this together for a win? It is not necessarily the easiest thing to piece together here. Yeah, so I'm curious to see what else he comes out with.
We're thinking we are in the tank heavily right now. How would we even get the Kakusho going right now? I think I don't see it in the I didn't see it in the graveyard yet, but I definitely could have missed it. It could be there already.
I was expecting a Balthor loop. But if you use Balthor, you have to exile the Necrotic Ooze because it's 3 mana, remove it from the game. And then everybody gets all the black and red creatures back from the graveyard into play. So that
Go
gets
ahead and-
one instance of Kakusho.
Yeah, Sliverboy having both Mindbreaker's Trap and Force of Negation, exiling things from higher, was extremely relevant, I think. Any other counterspell that puts Gary in the graveyard, I think the game would be over by now.
Yes.
But you basically have to start over when you lose your piece like that. So having to shift midstream is always difficult here.
Looks like we are double checking to make sure that Kirk got all the necessary counters.
Kakusho is definitely in the graveyard. Just saw Kakusho in that graveyard there. So looked like Animate Dead was in the graveyard too. So that certainly eliminates one of those other options.
We know Reanimate's gone as well. That was used in the beginning. We're going to discard. We're going to discard,
yeah.
I think, right? That's what that Peer into the Abyss into exile with. That's because of the Necro potent. So I think we may be going to discard here. I think Hire is just going to say, try to kill me. I bet you can't.
Yep.
Oh, no. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Sorry, no, we were just pitching to make mana so that we could Meat Hook Massacre the board here.
Yeah, with Necropotence, anything that he discards, even with the Scourge Familiar's ability, is going to go into exile. So it looks like we're casting a Meat Hook Massacre right now.
And you know what? This is still not bad for Hire because Crick is humongous. So Crick's definitely still going to be sticking around here.
If Hire can figure out any sort of loop, that Meat Hook Massacre is going to kill the table.
Oh, and so I don't know. So I know this is something that Cyrus talks about with the with his Toxrill deck, but there is a Meat Hook Massacre loop you can do.
What is it? Are we doing it in this deck?
So I don't know if this deck can do it as well.
That's what's that card do? I don't even know what. Pestilence.
Oh, it's Pestilence.
That's very scary.
Oh. Okay. So hold on. Something is becoming realized to me. Hold on. Let's see here. Each player, as long as you can bring a creature back, you'll gain the life with Meat Hook. Hire may have still figured out a way to make this work. What is that art on Pestilence? I think it's cool looking.
I've never seen that Pestilence art before.
Yeah, I've never seen that either.
A reprint.
That's been a lot of Pestilence printed over the years.
Seems like it.
All with a bunch of different art. Yeah. So we're gonna see this this Meat Hook Massacre come down. I'm imagining it's on 3, considering that will deal with Sovala, Thrasios, Gilded Drake.
This Meat Hook Massacre, it looks like the Meat Hook Massacre is in play and then the Pestilence was paid, which means I think the Meat Hook Massacre was put into play for no mana and it's just there for the static ability of whenever something dies, a little draining happens.
I think you're correct on that. Well, here we go. Razaketh the Foul-Blooded is going to come out for Hire next.
Normally that would be really good, but there's only 3 cards left in the library. What don't you have?
So apparently, we do have the Kakusho combo on board. Chainer can reanimate the Necrotic Ooze to sack it, but we're going to have to see what he decides to go for here. Because again, there's only 3 cards in Hire's library now, so it's good to have a way to be able to sacrifice Kakusho. We just got to get Kakusho back in here. So we're going to tap a bunch of mana, make sure we have the right number of counters on Crick, who is massive.
And it looks like Hire, there may be, this mono black deck does a lot. It looks like Painter in play, and the Kakusho in the yard, and news there. There is a win here that's on table. Hire is just attempting to find it and make it happen. Hire just said pass a turn. All right. That was interesting. What a turn. Okay, so we're moving on. Higher passes. It's Inkmoth's turn now. Where I think Hire's just saying, I have a whole bunch of things, everything I can possibly play. Try to kill me. If not, I'll figure it out on my next turn.
Do you know who else doesn't have anything? Inkmoth. Inkmoth also passed right away. Yeah, so we're gonna go around. Squirrel Mob's gonna be up next. Squirrel Mob's gonna get a draw. Play an Urza's Saga here, probably wiping all of the sweat off of their brow at the same time.
Yep.
Ooh.
And the thing is, though, I'm not sure if the rest of the table is going to be able to do anything. Higher, even if Higher didn't present a win, Higher is incredibly far ahead right now. So many resources, so many cards, so many things in play. I mean, even if Razaketh isn't searching for a win, it's an 8/8 flying demon. We're going to be able to do something. I mean, is it going to be enough?
I mean, Crick's also massive as well, so we're getting to a point where Higher can essentially, I mean, even if we can't piece anything else together, I mean, we can certainly at least beat everyone to death with power and toughness.
We're on Sliverboy's turn. He's rolled for Crypt, taken 3, down to 10, drawn for turn, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think decks like this, Kuruk deck, becoming much more popular, kind of show why Thrasios is not the giant that it once was, because an activation from Thrasios in here just seems so small in comparison. Not saying that Sliver's doing anything wrong here, but Thrasios is just not the house that it once was. The format has gotten very quick.
Yeah, you don't have the time. You don't have the time to put 4 mana into Thrasios as much.
Yep.
Oh, it looks like we're gonna pass right back over to Higher. Hire's gonna skip a draw step.
And untapping with all these things, let's see if Higher can figure out how to compile this win, or if we're just going to beat street. We're just attacking.
And everybody's got mana open now. Everybody's ready to just blast as well, which is significantly scarier, honestly.
Yeah, I would definitely be much more afraid this turn than the turn prior, but...
Are we on end step? I think so. Because everything's still tapped.
Yeah, it seems like it here. So we still got a couple of big in the tank moments here for Higher. Might be some end step instance that we're looking to get out of the way here now.
Definitely a big thinky moment. This deck, like we said, when it goes into God mode and all of a sudden you can do whatever you want, the decisions become a lot more difficult because your brain is used to saying, well, I need to pay mana for these spells. But Kirk says, not really, you don't. You can just kind of do whatever you want.
So we're getting word that Sliverboy is just checking out deck lists before passing. So we still are on Sliver's turn. So still potential to see some other spells get cast for them here. And again, if I'm any one of these other non-Higher players, I am still absolutely terrified of what is coming my way.
Yeah, I mean, right now, if Higher untapped, here's a line. There's a couple, but Higher can use Chainer to reanimate the Kakusho, which would drain everyone for 5, and he would gain 15. And then he can sacrifice the Kakusho with Razaketh, putting it back in the graveyard, and then use a whole bunch of life again with Chainer to reanimate the Kakusho again and finish everyone off. Is he going to see that line? Are we going to be able to get it? I'm not really sure, but it looks like
a spell on Inkmoth's turn, a 1 mana something.
Is that a Nature's Claim that's getting rid of the Necropotence there? Okay.
And
then a Snuff Out from Higher then.
So it looks like maybe, where do you think that Snuff Out is going? Are we getting rid of the Sylvala, the Thrasios maybe, just to make sure that Deflecting Swat isn't live or something like that? That could be an option here.
That could be. I mean, again, Thrasios really is the one that we are more concerned with being able to have the free counters in play for when Thrasios is in play. But although we would still have the mana to be able to hard cast the Fierce Guardianship or SWAT if that comes up as well.
Yeah, he could be, honestly, he could be snuffing out the Boreal Druid in attempts to dodge like an Endurance or something like that. If we're
that's also true.
Afraid of a hard cast Endurance, that could be something. But that doesn't look like the case. It looks like the Snuff Out is going at Thrasios, which will...
Well, I think is very fair.
Yeah, it will get a
for Thrasios activation, right? That makes sense.
Yeah, we'll get a response out of Sliverboy, get an activation, might as well get some more info. That one's going to the bottom. What do we got here? Anything? Any interaction?
Let's see. Drum roll, please. Oh, maybe they actually said that too. It is a Force of Will.
Interesting.
Oh, okay. Well,
do you protect your Thrasios or do you wait for something else?
Probably wait.
Wait
Yeah,
for something
probably
else.
wait. Yeah.
Looks like a grip it for sure.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what sucks for Force of Will is that everything that Higher needs to do is all like an activated ability.
Yes.
Like Higher technically does not need to cast any more spells.
Yes, that is very true. That is a bummer. Force of Will is good, but it's not perfect.
And well, it also depends on what the card that was Praetor's Grasp did was,
We don't know
right?
what that card is yet, correct? Do we still not know?
No, we still don't know the Praetor's Grasp card. Here's another scenario too. There could be no other blue card in hand for this Force of Will as well. So this might just be a 5-mana hard counter.
And we've got 2 mana for a
Grasp of Darkness is that, I believe.
That is a Grasp of Darkness. That is from the Oath of the Gatewatch expansion, that art.
Interesting. That means, okay, so Sylvala is gone. Does that mean that Higher is trying to remove Sliverboy from the game by attacking him? Is that what's going on? Because I'd be a little bit nervous to give Inkmoth back that Sylvala, but maybe Hire's not looking to pass the turn again. Why not?
Kurik is massive at this point.
Yeah, Kirk, I can't see exactly how many counters. That looks like it could be 14 or is that maybe 16? Is that an 18-18 right there? That could be a huge lifelink. What's that?
It's 10 plus, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely
hands down.
It's definitely could take out Sliverboy here, and getting rid of that Sylvala tells me that might be what's going on.
Yeah, so we're gonna go to Hire's turn. Higher gets to untap here. And we're gonna see what Hire's first move is. Do we attack? Do we just start going for some stuff? What's
There's an 18-18. There's an 8-8 trample. What does Chainer do? Does Chainer have any? I know what Chainer does, but does Chainer? No, Chainer is just a 3/3.
Well, it does give Nightmares +1/+1 too.
That's right.
Oh, and each of these creatures that's dying is proccing a Meat Hook Massacre trigger for 2 damage as well, which is
true.
This makes a lot of sense that Higher, the mid-range player that I think is probably the best mid-range player on the planet, is playing this deck like a mid-range deck, and it looks like he's doing all right with it. Looks like he definitely is in the lead right now, even if he doesn't take the win.
So he's going through the graveyard again. I saw him take a long look at Kukusho there.
Okay, so maybe he sees the line. Maybe he's just Higher could be just waiting to make sure that he is completely safe. He got blown out in that first turn, so he's making sure that he plays around everything possible for this win to make sure it comes out right. I respect the thought. I respect the extra planning.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, the one thing that hurts me more than anything is forgetting about certain things to play around, right? So making sure that you have your options for everything. Here we go. Liliana's Triumph. Here's a card you don't see too much. It is a pretty good one. Yeah, making everyone sacrifice a creature here.
Going to be a 2-for-1 here. Normally, probably going to be a 3-for-1. 2 mana. I think that rate's pretty good.
Yeah.
And don't forget also those Meat Hook Massacre triggers. Those are going to add up.
That's also true. So this making your opponent sack will proc Meat Hook, making them each lose a life here. That should bring Inkmoth down to 39 in that case then. Squirrel Mob, I think, would be at 34 unless they already lost.
Yeah, there is a chance that Squirrel Mob missed a couple of life loss triggers, but I'm not 100. Oh, no, that's not true. That's No,
this would have been the first creature of theirs that died.
Yeah, so they haven't missed any just yet. Yeah. Triumph resolves. Seems like it. Looks like that Recruiter Guard is gone. Did Inkmoth have another creature art that I'm forgetting, or is that Boreal Druid to be gone?
No, the Gilded Drake.
The Gilded Drake.
That's now in Boy's graveyard. Yeah.
There it is.
Here's another pause at the Kukusho.
We're looking at the Kukusho.
Pausing it again. We are so close here. Oh, here we go. Moving it to the front.
All right.
Okay.
We gotta be going for it now.
We gotta. Yeah. At this point, we're pretty solidly in a spot where if someone had other interaction, it would have come out.
At this point, I would start to be afraid of passing the turn because the longer you wait now, the more difficult it's going to get to win.
Hands down.
I would assume that players are going to start drawing into more stuff and inching their way back in the game.
We're moving to attacks.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to go to attacks first just to make sure.
This is conventional Magic knowledge, right? You know, everyone always says you get your attacks in first, and then that way if people have stuff to spend, they're more inclined to spend it here as opposed to anything else that you do on your second turn. This also gains him a ton of life this way too, right? So you can gain 18 life off of Crick, which just gives you a lot more flexibility
Oh, maybe that attack wasn't happening. The only thing that I'm afraid of with the Kakusho is it's important that you still have enough life from your opponents that you can continue to drain them and reanimate your things. Now, I haven't done the math, but if Sliver Boy dies and Kakusho is only draining for 10, does Chainer still have enough mana to win the game that way? I'm not sure.
With enough, yeah, that's a good point. With enough cards in your hand to still be able to pitch, to make black mana with Scourge Familiar, like you still do have some other outs to that too. But
Chainer's ability would only cost 9 life, so as long as he's making 10 off the Kakusho, she theoretically should be able to continue.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. Either way, it seems like there's still multiple ways to make sure that you're still safe and can get this taken care of here.
So we've got another. So Carrick ticks up a little more as well. And yeah, so I guess that's part of it, is that with only like 5 or 6 cards in hand, you can't loop Kakusho as easily. Is that what we're?
No, you don't need any cards in hand. You doesn't need anything right now. It looks like that that removal spell though was thrown at the Alacia though, because that is gone now. So I imagine the Murder Strider took that one out.
Yeah, but it was actually sacrificed to the Goblin Bombardment prior to that, so that way you can get a little extra.
No adventure. We're not going on the adventure anymore. Then
no adventures, no Candy Mountain, Charlie, none of that.
And
all right, so we have a card that I want to say is that I'm not sure.
That's a Blood Celebrant.
That's a Blood Celebrant. Okay.
That filters, I believe that's like filters life into mana, I believe.
Yeah, it looks like you can filter black mana and life into whatever color mana that you want. So this is kind of where, if we do want to go with the Thassa's Oracle line, if that's what we grasp for. But
I think we have all come to the conclusion that everybody is dead, but I'm not sure exactly what the win that we're going for is. With that Blood Celebrant, we can filter a lot of mana, but.
Or is that death based off attacks?
Squirrel Sex. Beats it, so it looks like Squirrel and
we're just taking combat damage.
Are just beaten by combat.
Oh, you know what, Crick? That's the thing. You cast enough spells, and then you can pump Crick up, and then that can just commander damage people out. So yeah, you don't even need Kakusho here.
Yeah, to go for win when you can just not lose. I love it. Higher. Taking the win. You can't do anything. Yeah. It looks like that's the end.
Nicely done, Higher.
There are, like we said, an enormous amount of options and a ton of different ways that Higher could have gone for it. To be honest, this one didn't take a ton more time than maybe the clean win would have. No. It's perhaps a little bit safer.
Turn 4 win still for Higher.
And it looks like the Balthor presented the loop as well. So
excellent. So okay.
Awesome to see. That was wild.
Love it.
Yeah, holy cow.
Definitely not what I was expecting. I was okay, Kirk wins on turn 2 or not at all, but I mean that was a turn 4 win. It was still pretty quick.
Yep. Yeah. That Balthor activation would have been just trigger after trigger after trigger. That would have been the rest of the evening.
Oh, yeah, really.
Like I see 10 plus creatures come out of the graveyard. I'm ready to pick them up too. So
yeah, that's enough for me, folks. I'll see you next week then. That's what I'd be saying. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Super sweet win. Great to see the mono black deck kind of take this here too.
All right, just saying, yeah, you got to stop me. Can you stop me on turn 3? No. Can you stop me on turn 4? No. How about turn 5? We'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Finally got there.
Which is like exactly what y'all were saying. If you can't back up the wins, just present them every turn.
Do it again next turn,
and then start even presenting them at instant speed, and then you get real crazy.
Yeah. One of the things that I love so much about this deck, and a lot more decks that are styled like this, that in the process of comboing out, you're left with an enormous win condition in play. If you don't figure out your Stormline, or if you don't figure out how to go infinite, you have a 21 power commander in play with lifelink. That's pretty good. Still use that.
That was a big boy for sure. He was slapping out there. So we've got Fern and Caleb back in there. How are we feeling about that one?
That was absolutely insane. Yeah. What a slugfest.
It was great. It did not go the way I thought it would go. I completely overlooked the fact that if the game went long and they couldn't get rid of Crick just becomes a big beater.
Yeah.
I just forgot about that, to be honest. I just was so focused on the fast combo. But yeah, that 18-20 life gain swings and being able to respend that every single turn really gets you a ton of value.
Yeah, and while Higher was going through his combo, not only is he making his commander really, really powerful and strong, but he's also destroying Savalas and he's destroying other creatures. opponent, making it very difficult for its opponents to play at all, while it's just growing enormous fatties in play.
Fire, as Scorpion once said, get over here and tell us about your thought process going into like specifically those last 2 turns with Crick.
Yeah. So I was like really stoked, and then I actually didn't know the lines that go outside of Gary. Like once Gary like gets exiled, I was like shiitake mushrooms. What do I do here?
It took us a long time to figure it out too. We're like,
yeah. So I know that there's a line with Meat Hook Massacre. I just don't know it. But like in my mind, I was like, okay, I need to like slow down because I was going really fast. I was like, oh, my combo's online. Like, let's go, burr. And then I was like, wait a minute, I need to slow my rolls real quick.
I think the line that we were looking at was Chainer reanimating Kakusho and sacrificing it with your Razaketh over and over again. But it turns out you didn't even need that. You just wanted with combat damage.
Just when you get there with combat damage. Yeah, the only thing I in that moment there was like so many moving pieces, and I was like, okay, all right, I went way too fast, and then I slowed down, and I was like, okay, I actually can just get Crick up to 21. And then I can beat the 2 players that have any type of interaction, and then like go 1v1 against Lavala with a pestilence on board. Like I feel like I win that interaction. So that's what I resorted
feel like you do.
We were just hoping for no endurance out of Silvala. You know, that endurance would have been soul crushing for sure at that point. But yeah, that was really, really great. What were you going to say, Dylan?
No, I was just going to say, I definitely respect you higher playing it the way that you felt comfortable playing it. In my head, you're a mid-range player through and through, and you played that game like a mid-range deck. You just said, well, I'm not sure how to go infinite here, but I know I can one-for-one my opponents until they can't take it anymore. And I think you were able to play extremely well. You got rid of all the things that your opponents were doing. So even if they were able to, like, you know, even if you weren't able to win, they couldn't either. And you have a giant idiot in play, so you're in the better situation once you have your whole deck in your hands, too.
Yeah. It was oh man, jeez, Manglehorn. Oh my god,
that was so rough.
That was so rough.
You had a really clean recovery after that Manglehorn, though. We were talking a lot in the pregame show about the sheer amount of like creature removal spells that are in this list here. How do you feel about this list in general, Higher? As someone who, you know, says that, you know, you're not as familiar with this, like what are your thoughts about Crick in general?
I think Crick's great. I think Crick is this specific list. This is so there's 3 lists on the database. This is Kriko, which is the mid-range Crick list. And
so you played it right. Great.
Yeah. So but like Crick in this, like when I saw my pod, I was like, I'm going first. I'm playing Crick because Crick can win turn 1. In my opening hand. So turn 1 I had Crick. Turn 2 I cast Final Parting. And I had Villas in my graveyard, and I got Reanimate and like cast Reanimate, draw 8, and I can like pretty much win from there. So like I had the opportunity, and then it got countered, which is fine. But the big thing that I kept focusing on was like, okay, creature-based combos like win really well, and it's hard to deal with creature-based combos. So I made it like a decision earlier on where I got a Chainer instead of a reanimation spell.
We talked about exactly that. I thought you were going to go for Animate Dead. When you got Chainer, I said, oh, this makes much more sense because this one isn't weak to any of the negate type effects that we have in our format,
Fierce Guardianship
or anything like that.
That's another Kokiomi now. 2 jinxes. Okay.
That was good.
So I think they mentioned it. They mentioned it in our little play-by-play chat here, but the question everybody wants to know: what did you Praetor's Grasp for?
Right.
Thassa's Oracle.
We were thinking that.
There you go. It makes sense.
Yeah, you had very few cards left in your library. That makes sense.
And then the Necro getting exploded puts you off of the Thoracle win a little bit, but I'm sure you still could have gotten there for. So that was. It was really interesting to see you because you were pitching to the Scourge Familiar ability. I saw you pitch all the color producing mana sources over and over and over again in the early stages of that Necrotic Ooze Draw Your Library loop. So when it came to you getting the Thoracle, I was definitely wondering like, okay, how's this colored mana going to come about? And then you put down the Signet and did it untapped, and we were like, oh, that's where it was supposed to come from. So it was really interesting to see that process happen live. Not to point out a punt or anything like that. It was just like really, really wondering what that Praetor's Grasp was. And I think that was an excellent decision, just something to win with one of somebody else's cards right away when you can draw the whole library is easy. So it was awesome to see.
It was awesome to see.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
There the only thing I wanted, I thought of it too late, which was there was a Gilded Drake on board with a Thassa, and so I could have killed the Gilded Drake, reanimated it, stole the Thassa, and now I have the blue mana from my Mox Amber.
Yep.
Right, and so like right, and so like I just didn't see it, and like getting rid of the Mox Diamond was like silly, but I was going super fast. And then not seeing Yawgmoth's Will in the deck list, I was like, oh my god. Oh no.
Yeah. I think I don't know if Amber would have done it, because I think Amber has to be based off of a legendary creature that you control.
Yeah, I Gilded Drake the Thrasios. That was
Yes, that's what you meant. Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So,
no, Yawgmoth's Will was a little bit scary. We noticed that as well. How do you get him back?
Yeah.
With a graveyard that stacked, it's really, really painful to be like, oh wait, can't do it is really, really tough. But congratulations on a well fought win. Truly, truly, you put everything into that, and it was beautiful to watch. So
that was very, very well piloted.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Great job, buddy.
All right.
So that's and any other thoughts on the game? Any other finals?
No thoughts, just vibes. That was an awesome game.
Super happy to watch it.
Fast
games today.
Yeah, for those that don't know, the other game that was scheduled for today with Sage, Cobblepot, and others, that was rescheduled for another time. No further details on that, but we will get some more information on that in the following, if not in the next couple of days, within the next stream of the MLC. We'll keep you guys updated.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up for today. I want to give a huge shout out to our analysts, Fern and Caleb. You guys are awesome. It was great having you in the chat, feeding us information as well. And Dylan and Cam, it is such a pleasure to watch you two just shake and bake for sure. Like really, really amazing. Y'all absolutely crushed it. And to be in there with you in the trenches was beautiful. So thank you guys all for this opportunity. And yeah, thanks for some awesome games this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for MCing too, Alan.
Yeah, this is a lot of work. So I appreciate you guys putting in a lot of work into this. Everyone doing so much to make this happen. It's awesome to see. So thank you for having us.
Well, you're very welcome. Before we sign off for anything, Alan and Dylan, Cam, where can we find you? What do you guys do? Because it's been a while since we started.
We post videos every Sunday, CEDH content. You can find us on Sundays, Play to Win, MTG, Twitter, we're there too. Instagram, we're there too.
YouTube primarily.
YouTube is the main spot.
Yeah, he didn't say that, but that's where we are.
And you can catch me anywhere that you can type in Mental Misplay. I'll probably show up. We do some YouTube. We do a lot of focus on live streaming. And recently, you can catch me showing up at events and going live with live coverage at events, kind of gonzo gorilla style coverage with a microphone and a selfie stick. Is the mic in here? Yeah. So we got if you end up at a Command Fest, you might get this stuck in your face. You can catch me there, and we've been editing those and putting them up on the YouTube to kind of show people what the events are all about and what kind of fun we're having. And there's always something wild new on the way. So thank you guys again so much. Truly appreciate it.
Anytime. Y'all are awesome, and I know I for sure would love to see you guys come on and join us for another time.
Oh, I sure will, of course. Yeah, definitely.
When's the next game? When can we tune into the MLC next? Is it next weekend, or is there another break?
I believe it is next weekend. If not, we will give you guys an update on our Twitter, which is just Monarch Media. Stay tuned to that to always be updated on any events that are going on with us, especially with November Oktoberfest as well.
Yep.
Yeah, there's going to be further updates coming on with that. And of course, we also have our Tuesday and Thursday streams.
Yep. Awesome. And you can support us on Patreon over at Monarch Events instead of Monarch Media. It helps support everything you see here today, both the MLC, our weekly gameplay streams, and everything we post up on YouTube as well. It definitely really, really helps. So thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for our casters, our analysts, our Alan, Dylan, Cam. It was absolutely wonderful to have you on today.
Absolutely. And it looks like Marcus is going to jump in and has a couple ads for us. So we should be good to go. Marcus, you there?
Thank you, everyone. We want to appreciate y'all for joining the stream, and we will be back next week with some more MLC coverage. Thank you all, and have a lovely afternoon.
Bye. So
Be good.
long.
Stay royalty.
Deuces.